here. Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It's that time of the week. As you can see, once again, I am joined by Rhys from German Gills. I will do that as I do every week. Go and find his channel, hit subscribe, and watch his content because it's brilliant. It's been a funny old week, Rhys. Beat Wimbledon, didn't we, last Saturday? Unfortunately, he wasn't around for the Monday review, so we didn't get a chance to talk about that. Lost to Bradford in the week. For me, a side that gets in the playoffs based on what I've seen. I get we can only see small sections of a club's form over an entire season. I know the Bradford fan base say that their home form could end up letting them down, but for me, one of the most complete performances from an opposition side. But Saturday just gone 0-0 at Harrogate. Imagine we'll be last on the ITV highlight show. As we like to say, it's probably one of them films that goes straight to DVD. If it was a movie, wouldn't have been shot in the cinema. But it's another point, and it's increased the gap to the bottom four. So in that sense, it's another decent afternoon for the Gills.
I think you're absolutely right. I think despite the poor viewing from, I mean, I feel sorry for the 600 fans that took the journey. I hope they had a couple of beers to get them through it if they're that way inclined. But yeah,
a few of them had an immense pie, mash and gravy with mushy peas.
Heard.
I've seen that a few times. That looked unreal. Yeah, fair play to Harrogate knocking out that type of grub. That looked really, really good.
Absolutely.
That might be the highlight of the video, Gills fans and Harrogate fans, just to warn you.
But I have to say, you know, albeit being kind of a really dull game as a spectacle, it's not a neutrals game. It definitely is a great point on the road. Let's not put that. Let's highlight that point because you know, if we talk about the statistics, out of all the teams we've played around us, these are the only teams we've dropped points against, and so we've got 13 out of 15 points from the clubs all around us. I mean, that is not to be sniffed at.
It's nicking my note.
I'm sorry.
No, you're spot on. Absolutely that, and I tweeted it out Saturday evening. Hartlepool, Colchester, Crawley Town, Rochdale, Harrogate Town have not conceded a goal. 13 points from 15 available. That was what January to May was about, was getting ourselves above the line, getting off the bottom of the table and pulling clear of danger. And we've continually done that over the last 2 months.
Absolutely, and it's great, and look at the table; it's good looking actually, and you know, and teams below us are mostly dropping points, apart from a surprise victory for Rochdale yesterday against Stevenage, which it's a double-edged sword in my opinion. But
yes, there's the obviously there's people that have certain opinions on our former manager, and it was great to see Danny Lloyd get on the score sheet. But
yeah, it was actually.
It's still going to be tough for Dale, unfortunately, isn't it? And
it is.
To not help them out, I think other teams picked up points down there as well, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
They looked at one point like they was gaining 2 or 3, but for confidence, it'll do them the world of good. And it was great to see Danny Lloyd, like I say, doing what he does best, and slightly ironically against the manager that has signed him twice and brought him to Gillingham not 2 years ago. Anyway, back to us. 2 o'clock team news. We're desperately trying to pad this out. 2 o'clock team news came in. There was 2 changes from Tuesday night's defeat against Mark Hughes' side. It was Stuart O'Keefe, who wasn't great Tuesday night. After a fairly bright start, he seemed to run out of legs fairly quickly. He came out of the 11 and dropped to the bench. The surprise was Dom Jeffries completely out of the squad, so I assume an illness or a knock. I know Macca's been ill in the week, so there's a chance that it has spread to other players. So I'd imagine it's nothing too serious. We keep our fingers crossed because Dom's been very good. But that was the 2 that came out of the starting 11. And there was a return for Tim Dieng after concussion and Tom Nichols. And it was a fairly attacking side, I think, wasn't it? It was the same goalkeeper and same back 4, so we know that. But then we had Sean Williams sitting, but then you had Dieng, Lapsley, who like to be forward runners. We then had, I set it up as Aidan O'Brien in the 10 in a diamond, and then Nico and Ollie Hawkins up front. So you had 4 or 5 people that you'd class as goal scorers in that 11. Quick question for you. Did we play as a diamond? Because at times when I've watched the highlights on iFollow, it looked like we was playing Aidan O'Brien wide from the left. So I assume Lapsley would have been wide from the right. But for me, without Macca and another natural winger, I don't think that works for us. I don't know what your take was on it, because you've watched the entirety of the game.
Yeah, there was one takeaway from me. It was quite we had O'Brien was a wide player. Lapsley went wide, but one of the bigger things for me was that as a result of having 4 attacking players at the front of the park, Actually, it left quite a lot of work to do in the midfield. The flow of the play from defence to the top was quite fragmented. There was no fluidity through the centre of the park because you've got 4 goal scorers who just want to get forward and they want balls, they want delivery, they want to be at the end of that attack. But the service from the centre, unfortunately, the Dieng and Williams, even though they had decent enough games, it just the flow of the game through the midfield was just not. It just didn't work for the front 4, as it were. It's a very attacking lineup, but I think looked like we neglected the middle of the park as the engine of this team to get those 4 attacking. I would have happily have changed that a little bit up top to maybe reduce to take away a full attacking player and put someone else in the center of the park.
Yeah.
That would be my kind of take on it, really. Like, I would like to see Macca in there somewhere.
I just thought, I'd imagine obviously Macca's recovered from illness,
Yeah.
and I think Neil said he was on antibiotics, so you can assume he was only going to ever get half an hour. But yeah, I just thought it would have been better as a diamond with Willow sitting in front and then Lapsley and Dieng from the sides and Aidan O'Brien just off the front 2. But again, we can't, because plenty of fans have said over the last 6 months, 18 months that Neil Harris plays with a handbrake on. You can't accuse him of doing that yesterday because of all them attacking players that were on there. Whether it works is another conversation entirely, and it doesn't always work. We understand that, but yeah. So certainly not sitting here and saying that Neil Harris wasn't trying to win the game. Looking at the lineup, you mentioned Sean Williams. He was involved very early on. First minute, in fact, I think the ball drops to him on the halfway line, and he tries to play it over the top, and I think Hawkins flicks it on for Tom Nichols, who then does really well to hold it up. I think he manages to spin and give it to Shea Alexander, who puts a ball across the box. It's not very well defended, I must admit. I think it bounces a couple of times. But from there, and we've said about Aidan O'Brien's technical ability already this season since he's arrived. Brilliant first touch on his chest. Brilliant second touch to lift it over the fullback. And you just think for all the world, he's just going to smash it in the back of the net, and he blazes it against the top of that little stand behind the goal, unfortunately.
He does.
Until then, it was 2 perfect touches.
It was, I tell you what it reminded me of, Tom Eaves at Portsmouth was what it reminded me of.
Yes, it was very similar, yeah. Just a shame that the finish didn't match Tom's at Fratton Park.
No, I think O'Brien's effort ended up at Fratton Park, actually. He hit it so high. No, it was really funny. When that attack happened, I thought, oh, right, we've got a game on our hands here. We've got 4 attacking players. And it looked for all the world that we're going to move on and just build on that 30-second start of the attack that we had to begin with. And
yeah.
And then I actually think, you give O'Brien you give him that 9 more times, he puts it in the back of the net, or at least on target 9 times.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And it's just a shame. It was just a bit of adrenaline rush first 30 seconds of the game. Of course, you're gonna, we're very excited to be in that position early on. Just put a little bit too much on it, forgot about his technique. But yeah, unfortunately, I just thought from there, I thought, okay, we're going to be on the front foot all the way through. We're going to make it really miserable for Harrogate for the rest of the game. But that didn't happen, unfortunately.
No, I've written down here, and obviously you know more than me. You've watched the game in full. I've only watched extended highlights and seen what I've seen on social media. I've written down after that, nothing more than half chances in the first half. Yep. I've written down for Harrogate, there was a Luke Armstrong header, a diving header. I think Maxima did just enough to put him off, and he headed it. It almost went out for a throw-in. Kazim Olagby, I think I've pronounced that near enough correct as well. Yep. He managed to get his feet sorted out about 20 yards out, dragged one wide that I think that Glenn Morris had covered. There was another one at the end of the half. Levi Sutton managed to skip away from Dieng, but the angle's tight, straight at Glenn Morris. And then the only other one really for us was the little bit of interplay down the left where I think David Tatonda got on the overlap and Aidan O'Brien played. He just overhit the pass, unfortunately.
Yeah, he did.
And Tatonda was stretching, and it was like a cross-come shot that Oxley sort of patted out and they cleared. But was there anything else in terms of decent play, patterns of play, or chances?
I'll tell you what, actually, one of the things I did pick up on when we had the first opportunity, first 30 seconds, actually the first 15 minutes of the game, we looked like we could be creating stuff, and we looked like a team with confidence, but with no end product moving forward. And then all of a sudden it kind of flipped and Harrogate got a little bit of a foothold in the game. But I tell you what, each team couldn't keep hold of the ball for more than 10 seconds each a lot of the time. It was just to and from, lose possession. And apart from, you mentioned the two Tonda effort, and it was a pretty poor pass forward. He tried to make the best of a bad situation, got the ball across, good save or good pat out by Oxley, I suppose. But then this was where we let ourselves down and where we've been different in previous games. The ball was pat out by Oxley, but there was no kind of ball back into the box to reignite the attack that we just started. There was none of that this time. It turned out we lose a 50-50 or we'd lose a second ball and then Harrogate had possession again. And it was just everything fell apart really, really quickly. Anything that we ever did with any merit. But that also was true for Harrogate to a certain extent. They didn't have any end product anywhere across the park, really. And that was the story I'm going to say for the first half, but actually for the majority of the whole game.
Yeah, that's from what I saw and what I read, that's what it felt like. It was almost like both teams were very good up until the edge of the 18-yard box, and then it was just the wrong decision again, which I think was similar to what we were like on Tuesday against Bradford as well. We got into some really good areas, and for one reason or another, it's just not quite clicked in an attacking sense over the last 180 minutes. I know it's two blanks. We use the word blank regarding Gills and goal scoring in the first half of the season all too often, but for me, it's not a concern. We lost to a good Bradford side.
And to be fair, on that Bradford game, they had a complete wholesome performance, which for me actually was really solid from them. They come to a difficult place essentially and did a professional job, but we only did 2 defensive errors, and if anything, we've gone away now to our next game and got a clean sheet. So that's progress for me. We've fixed something there. It's kind of how I view that as well.
Yeah, of course, we don't want our players to be making 2 errors in a game that lead to goals, but yeah, it's a game that swung on very fine lines. But we've said that a lot this season, haven't we? And they've got a bloke in Andy Cook who's at the top of his game. And to be fair to him, he still had loads to do, didn't he? After the Maxime
I've got to say that goal, his second goal, it was tasty. It was a lovely goal.
Very good. I think he scored again at the weekend, 90 plus 3, I think, and they won. I think Bradford scored twice in injury time to win their game.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, in front of over 20,000 fans.
It's not bad, is it?
Valley Parade. Yeah, Valley Parade.
Yeah, Valley Parade, yeah.
Phenomenal effort for League Two, and fair play to them. Back to us again. Yeah. We're desperately trying to extend this episode for you. I've written down the stats. I wrote down. It was 52-48 in favour of the home side, so not a lot in it at all. Corners we had 2, they had 0 first half, so that shows you how much the ball was. People were getting in behind all that, or getting really good delivery into dangerous areas. Shots on target, they had 2, we had 1. Passing, and I think this sums it up about what you said about teams turning over possession really quickly and really cheaply. 61% for Harrogate, 56% for Gills. So you're looking at around 58-59% for both sides as an average, which
is pretty poor.
It's League Two, isn't it? Let's be honest. There's not many teams that have 75 and 80% possession at this level. Second half, I've written down not much in the way of real quality. Again, that's my opening line.
And there's one moment for Gillingham, which you've probably got written down somewhere.
I've got that later on, I think, and it involves our left back again, yes. Again, it was just stuff that was... For Harrogate, it was stuff from outside the box that if Glenn Morris let slip through, you'd be really disappointed in a keeper of the Cats' quality. I've said it, I think I said it before we started recording. All I seemed to hear on the highlights or read on Twitter was half chance for Harrogate straight at Glenn Morris. That seemed to be, everything was just attracted to him like a magnet. There's not one of them where I think that's an unreal save. And he's had a good game, don't get me wrong, Glenn. He's got to be in the right place, but he's not really been extended for me. Luke Armstrong, I think, had one of them efforts. Danny Grant. Then the half chance for us. And to be fair, it was one of the few times I thought, Rhys, having a look at what I saw, where we actually got it down and we played some nice stuff. I think we did. I think the ball initially came out to the halfway line and Connor Masterson had it in the left centre-back channel. Tried to go left, found out it was blocked. So he span back on himself, gave it to George Lapsley and managed to open up the pitch. I think Lapsley then played it sort of halfway line across to Shea Alexander, who then quickly got it out to Macca, who come on into his feet. Macca played that little clip towards the penalty area where Tom Nichols had just pulled out wide. Quick 1-2, and I thought, wait a minute, where's it gone? I'm looking at a different chance. Yeah, this was another chance. Yeah, this was the one. And then Macca just fizzed it across the box. And I think what you said about the first half, where it just seemed we weren't quite at it in terms of just being alert to stuff in dangerous areas. And I think Neil Harris has alluded to it in his press conference afterwards. Oliver Hawkins looks like if he just goes half a second quicker, he gets there and taps it in, but he doesn't. He's sort of caught on his heels, and it goes out for a goal kick over the far side. But I thought that was probably our best bit of football that I saw.
That was our best move of the game. I'm glad you brought that one up, actually, because it was a passion play, about 45 seconds, and it was the only part of the game where I thought, oh, this is above League Two standard football. It was really nicely played. It was good footwork, and I think it's a tasty ball from Maka going across the box.
Yeah,
it's a really nice ball, and it's of high quality. And it's one of those, you know, when you say like someone's hit a shot too well, and therefore it's really easy to save or something like that. It was kind of a cross that was hit too well, because Hawkins has had to react to it so on point to make that cross worthwhile, like to go and actually attack it. If it scuffed it slightly or slightly skied it, or Hawkins might have been able to get there a lot easier. But he hit it with such precision and such accuracy that Hawkins also had to be on point to get there. And he's just half a second too slow. If he reacts to the cross a little bit quicker, I don't know how he's not going to score.
I think Hawkins, because he's the right side of the centre half, isn't he? He's not got to wrestle the centre half. He's in between them. So for me, it's a really good chance. But these things happen, don't they? People aren't going to be at it all the time. It's one of them moments that games can swing. But again, like we've said hundreds and thousands of times, first half of the season, we miss a chance like that. Invariably, we go and concede and lose the football match, which we're not doing anymore. The chance you were talking about, sorry, I started reading the wrong paragraph, so I thought I'd go with it and style it out. Was the David Tatonda volley. Again, I think there was some decent play, and it led to Shea Alexander whipping a ball in. And I think Tom Nichols tried to head it down, and they cleared it up in the air. Tatonda's caught it really well, hasn't he? And I think it is dipping under the crossbar. Oxley's at the back track, similar to the one against, who was it a few weeks ago? Away game. Rochdale, where Morris nearly got caught out with a cross-come shot. But this is definitely an effort on goal from David Tatonda, and Oxley had to just flick it over the bar. But that was it, I think, wasn't it, in terms of quality after that?
Pretty much it. That particular attack, it was going to be one of those style of goals that was going to win this game. If there was to be a goal, it was going to be something like that, or an absolute scrappy toe poke 1 yard goal. It was one of those two things. If there was ever to be a goal. But I have to say, with that Tatonda effort, he impressed me, actually. But in an attacking sense, he did pretty well, actually, on Saturday.
It's good you said that. I've got a question for you at the end. So,
oh, right, okay. But I've just got just on that shot, though, all it takes, luckily for Oxley, it was right down his throat, essentially. Like, all he had to do was jump back and tip it over the bar. He'd be disappointed himself if he wasn't saving that. But it only takes a little bit of ball movement, slightly half a yard to the left, half a yard to the right, and all of a sudden, that is almost impossible to save. Again, I think Tatonda's hit it too well. It's just one of those things, unfortunately. And
if you can scuff a volley from 30 yards,
yeah, fair point. But he hit it dead, as straight as a die, and it's right in the goalkeeper's throat. If it's slightly left, slightly right, that's in the back of the net, and we're talking about an absolute worldie of a goal of the season winner, essentially. Was it to be though?
No, it wasn't, unfortunately, and I think it would have probably been on harsh on either side if they'd ended up going home with nothing, because I don't think either side did enough to warrant 3 points. That might actually be it for the game action. I've written down half chance for Harrogate. I think it was Armstrong and Alaigbe again that played a little 1-2. But again, the angle was against Armstrong when he received the ball back, and it was straight at Morris. He just sort of fell on it and saved it under his armpit. There was one quickly, though, Rhys, I think it was Armstrong again.
Yeah.
Earlier in the half, shot deflected. Glenn Morris got down, saved it, and it spilled it slightly. Got up, put his hands on it, and it looked like, to me, that Armstrong had kicked it out of his hands, but the referee allowed play, and I think Maxime had done well enough to clear it out for a throw. So no harm done, essentially. But do you recall the incident?
Vaguely recall. Yeah, I vaguely recordings of it being spilled and him trying to scramble to get hold of the ball. In my faded memory of this game, I think actually it wasn't kicked out of his hands. It squirmed away from him enough, and it was a clean tackle out.
I thought I'd ask, because Gills' Twitter was saying that it looked like Morris had it in his hands, obviously biased towards their own club, but listening to the commentary, it was the Harrogate side of commentary, and they said, Luke Armstrong's got every right to go back in for the rebound, which I don't disagree with.
And I think it was it squirms away, and Morris was half a second too late, and and Harrogate just got their foot in there. Essentially, it was Armstrong got his foot in there to try and get the ball. So for me, I did notice it when I was watching it, and if something like that happened during the game, I would probably pick up on that when I'm talking about it. And it didn't fall into my vocabulary. I didn't see it.
Wasn't a lot to see, was there? Let's be
No.
honest. I think the full-time whistle went shortly after that, and yeah, like I say, not one for the purists, but another point added, 8 points clear of the drop zone. Only Rochdale below us winning, I think it was. I think Crawley got beat late on, or pegged back.
They got beat late on Tranmere, I think, 79th minute, the Tranmere scored.
No, Northampton.
Northampton, sorry, good volley. That was a volley. It was
Northampton
a good volley.
Just gone down to 10 men as well, yeah. I think Tranmere drew with, Dave was playing someone down there, weren't there? 2 seconds, so I can have a look. Yeah,
because I know they were involved in it as well. It slipped my mind as well, that one.
Tranmere drew 1-1 with Hartlepool. That was it.
Hartlepool
took the lead and got pegged back. So yeah, looking at the results, it was another decent enough day for the Gills. Crawley got beat. Obviously, Harrogate dropped points against us. Grimsby, do we talk about them? Because they're down there. They lost. Newport lost. Rochdale won.
Grand scheme of things.
Well, it's only a few weeks ago, people talked about Grimsby as potential outsiders for the playoffs when they had all them games in hand. But I said at the time I didn't think they had enough, and that their form has fallen off quite a bit, to be fair. So yeah, another decent afternoon. Crew drop points as well. If we're still involving them in the chat, we've got games in hand over plenty. We'll talk about one of them games in hand quickly right at the end of the video, which will be a tough one.
And most importantly, Matt, just to say, Harrogate didn't win because they're around us.
This is the thing. If people were going to say to us, if you're going to only take 1 point from 2 games against Bradford or Harrogate, you take it off Harrogate. Because otherwise, if you take the point off Bradford but Harrogate win the other day, then they gain 2 points on us. So
exactly.
All we keep doing is ticking off games, picking up points. I think 3 more wins is going to have us absolutely fine, because you're only going to need probably 42, 43, 44 to be safe. It's not like 50 and above in League One, because 4 don't go down. And essentially, I think Rochdale are gone still, despite that win.
Agreed.
And I think we'll find 3-4 wins from the remaining 13, 14 games.
I'd be disappointed if we don't.
Yeah. But it'd be nice to get there quickly, wouldn't it?
Of
and
course.
Then we can have a look at, the Ethan Colemans and the Jaden Clarks potentially in the last couple of games of the season. Back to the game, though. The section where we look at the best Harrogate town player, and this is all for you today. Town Terror, I called it.
Nice.
I could be describing the game, to be fair.
Yeah, right.
The two that I kept seeing on social media and on the commentary watching the game back were Luke Armstrong and Kazim Alagbaye again. So over to you, because
they're the two that propped my attention. I thought Alagbaye looked really, really solid. I don't think he had the best game actually, but he looked like he had so much potential. And could cause teams so many problems. He was quick, he was alert, he was trying to create stuff, and Armstrong in the same boat as well. They were the ones causing all the problems. And if there was going to be a moment where Harrogate were going to get a goal, it was going to come from one of those two, absolutely. But for me, if I was to have to pick one of your town terrors, unfortunately it's going to have to be a double duo. it's between those two. For me, those were the two as well that pretty much shone. And the ones moving forward for Harrogate are going to be the two that aim to keep this team out of the drop zone. I just thought they looked pretty solid. And I always look at opposition players and go, who out of that team do I want playing for Gillingham? They were the two I picked up on. Just moving forward, they looked like they had good chemistry. It looked like they knew what they were doing with the ball. It looked like they were always had an eye for goal. And sometimes that hunger is all you need. And those two definitely displayed that yesterday.
I think an out pace was a key word you used, especially describing the Alagbaye, because that's something I think we lack, especially if we're going to play a flat 4-4-2. I think, and I know someone like Hakeem Delacoon's been very enigmatic all season. You clearly got ability, but just not really worked consistently for one reason or another. But I think that's the type of player we need for next season if we're going to play proper orthodox wingers, so to speak.
Yeah. Because
Macca's great at working hard out of possession. He'll tuck in when we've not got the ball. Aidan O'Brien will do the same, but I don't know. Neil Harris keeps saying he can play left-hand side, but for me, he's better through the middle as a 10 or a centre forward.
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah, that'd be key areas for me next season. But again, if we're not going to play 4-4-2, then obviously you want to fill it with 6, 8s, and 10s, don't you, to play the diamond. Back to the two players in question. They both played 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I've just seen Alagbaye's pass completion, very out of context compared to the rest of the game. 84% pass completion from the young man. So that's really, really good. Played 2 key passes. Armstrong played 4. Both had Alogby had 1 shot on target, 2 for Armstrong, but again straight down the throat of Glenn Morris, like we keep saying. In terms of Jules, 1 year, 7 out of 17 on the floor for Alogby. Armstrong, obviously more the target man. He won 17 of 26, so he outshone our own Ollie Hawkins in that respect yesterday. So yeah, very justified choices from Rhys, 100% there. They looked the 2 that were going to cause us the most problems in defensive areas. Back to Gills, man of the match. The club put out the tweet Saturday evening. It was between Glenn Morris, Aidan O'Brien, David Tatonda and Timmy Dieng. Over to you.
It's a funny one, isn't it? Statistically, you give it to Glenn Morris if you're using the numbers.
Which is what I want to talk to you about in a little while regarding match ratings, because it's something that we've done different this week. I've gone from a data-based app to get the ratings because I've not watched the full game. And I think obviously that can be construed slightly different because it is solely data-driven. Whereas if you're in the game or watching it live, you can see stuff with the naked eye.
Exactly.
But back to man of the match.
Yeah, so I have to say for Glenn Morris, he does make 1 save near the end on the 91st minute, which is pretty tidy, and but again, it's straight at him, so it's that kind of thing again. But he has to be there, I suppose. So for me, he's in contention just because of having a solid game. But I think for me, the one that really I'm stuck between 2. I thought the whole of the mid. This is a really weird one, this. So I thought Tutonda did really well yesterday. I thought he had a good attacking prowess.
I saw plenty of people saying that on social media, to be fair, which is great to see because I think he just dipped in the last couple again. He made that error against Wimbledon. Had a couple of moments against Bradford as well.
But he was just solid. He looked like he had control of the ball. Moving forward was great defensively, was sound. But the other one, and because Alexander also had a pretty decent game, again, had that attacking mindset. But actually, before he was subbed off, I thought Sean Williams was pretty good yesterday. And I wonder if he just got a little bit tired. And I thought he had a pretty decent game.
He's been battling a rib problem as well, hasn't he? They said, because he's not trained properly for a week or so now after Rochdale, I think they said. So obviously trying to be mindful of his minutes and his age, with the utmost respect, Willow.
But for man of the match for me, if you could, based on statistics, you give it to Glenn Morris. But actually, just watching it, I'm genuinely struggling between the time that Williams was on the pitch, because I thought he was everywhere and was doing okay, sort of a defensive nature. But for me, it would go to David Tutonda, just for him and to bounce back from the last few games that he's not performed at his best, to then be in this position back in the squad and then performing. I thought yesterday attacking and defensively was a sound choice for me. And that's who I would go with in the non-statistical way.
So looking at the data-driven app that I use, you've picked 4 players out that were in the top 5. I know that's half the team, but you've only got to exclude Max Email from that. And then you said Sean Williams, David Tatonda, Alexander and Glenn Morris. They were the other top 4. Morris, again, I think because it's data-driven, it gets higher and higher because he's made save after save. But like you said, the one at the end, if that goes in at his near post, we're fuming.
Yeah, right.
I think. So they're all pretty straightforward stops for Glenn. What you said is spot on, neat and tidy. We expect that from Glenn Morris. He's a very, very good goalkeeper at the level. Let's look at let's look at Sean Williams first then. 69 minutes played before he was withdrawn, and again, an attacking change. We brought on Alex McDonald. So Neil Harris can't be accused of not trying to win the game. He's not sitting on his point because you're taking off essentially the only completely defensive-minded midfielder in the 11. 56 touches, 72% pass completion. So he's above the average for both sides by some distance as well. Here's an interesting one. 5 out of 7 long balls successfully completed. So that's a really good rate as well, because generally you don't see it that high. In terms of Jules, he won 9 out of 14 on the floor. He won 50% in the air. Won 5 free kicks.
That's actually... That's exactly the thing I noticed yesterday. He was winning a lot of free kicks. That's what he was doing. I don't know. That's what it was. He was just winning and slowing the pace down when we needed to slow the pace down. That's what he was good at yesterday. I couldn't find it. That's what it was.
yeah. And then a clearance, an interception, 3 tackles. So yeah, solid all-round performance from the captain yet again. But let's have a look at Rhys's pit. We're going to go David Tatonda. And I know most of these because I've already drafted a tweet to go out. which will
Oh,
already
right.
be out because this is being recorded the day before, so it'll be on Twitter now. 90 minutes played for Disco Dave, 3 interceptions, 2 tackles. He had 85 touches. Pass completion was 61%, which again is above average. 2 successful crosses. He won 8 out of 11 ground duels, 50% in the air. Another one who won a lot of free kicks. He was fouled 4 times. So again, breaks up the play, gets us back in our shape, allows us to get up into the right areas of the pitch. Kept a clean sheet and nearly scored goal of the season.
Yes.
But yeah,
No.
2 really good picks from Rhys. Can't argue looking at the ratings. And this is the interesting bit I want to do now. So what I want to do is I want to go through player by player and let you give yours, and then I'm going to give the data-driven equivalent,
Okay.
because for me, and no disrespect to the Gills' performance, these look incredibly high for a very, very drab 0-0. So,
Yeah.
Glenn Morris.
I would have 7.5. It's standard goalkeeper clean sheet performance, 7.5, something like that, maybe.
The app that I use gave him 8.7.
Yeah, that's really okay. Oof, it's high. Okay,
This
that's
is it. This is
because
again, isn't it? Because it's so because they're just looking at stats. They're going, oh, he's made loads of stops. Defenders make loads of clearances or tackles. Strikers have loads of shots. I suppose the data just keeps rising and rising. But when you've got the benefit of watching the game properly, you see it slightly differently, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. The saves he was making yesterday would be as easy as making a save on a Word document. That's kind of the level we're at with this. Like,
yeah, that's what I thought. So I mean, I'm not going to give a rating because I've not watched the full game, but yeah, I just thought these were really high. Right, we go back 4, so we go from right to left. So Shay Alexander.
7 to 7.25, somewhere around there it would be. Yeah, something like 7 to be exact.
This app gave him 7.9.
Okay.
So again, it's higher than what we're seeing with the naked eye. Maxima.
Again, a 7. It's exactly the same reason. Solid back, and for what it's worth, you're going to mention Masterson as well. Both of them got a 7, in my opinion. I thought they were pretty solid at the back.
So these are not miles out there. And they gave Max a 7.5 and Connor a 7.1. So that's the closest we've been so far.
Right,
whereas
okay.
Glenn's and Shay's have been way and above what you've seen from watching the game for 90 minutes. David Tatonda.
I gave him 7.5, but 7.6 then to give him man the match, in my opinion, because that's behind than Glenn. But yeah, it's 7.6 if you like.
So they gave 7.2. So this is where the anomaly comes, because the data-driven stats pushes the goalkeeper up, but you're saying because they're generic saves that he should be making, almost like training ground routines that you see or warm-ups, he ends up with 1.5 more higher than David Tatonda, who's also kept a clean sheet, which is where I think the problems arise. So yeah, 7.2 for David. Middle of the park, Sean Williams.
Sean Williams, 7 again. Pretty solid for the time he was out there, and yeah, so a solid 7 from the captain, considering he was only on for 69 minutes and recovering from something.
7.2. So that actually is the closest apart from Connor Masterson. Then, so that's very, very similar. This is the one I'm interested in because this was the lowest rating on this app and by quite a distance. Tim Dieng.
Before I give away sort of number of that, he had a very turbulent game. He had moments of brilliance and moments of being solid and moments where you think, why the hell are you doing that?
I think he was the one that gave it away, wasn't he, for the chance for Oleg Boy right at the end of the first half, sorry, because he tries to overplay and then he gets his feet sorted out and the shot drifts wide. But yeah, just a bit of ring rust, I suppose, because he's missed a couple of games or, come off in one.
It's funny because, like, on the whole scheme of the game, it's a 6.5 performance. He had moments when he was 7.5 and moments when it was like 5. So if you just take the middle of the road, 6.5 is probably just about right. It's harsh to give him 6, maybe, but it wasn't his best, and it's a forgettable game for Dieng for sure.
6.4 on the app, so that's pretty similar as well. George Lapsley and Aidan O'Brien complete the midfield.
Yeah, so do you know what? Right, I'm going to give them both. I'm going to give Aidan O'Brien 6.5. It's a bit harsh, actually. I think people are going to probably go against that slightly, but I just thought, again, missing that opportunity at the start of the game really set the tone for him, and I just don't think he recovered from that. And even though he was in and about and trying to create opportunities, again, he just wasn't at his best. If you rate his own performance based on him, it's a 6.5 for me at the top, and that's where I think we lacked a little bit. So that's where I've put that. I might be very harsh. And for Lapsley, if I can give us like a 6.75, maybe somewhere around there would be kind of my ballpark for those.
Interesting, because I'm sure I see someone on Twitter say that Aidan O'Brien just seemed to be affected by that miss. It almost looked like it had got in his head, and it took him a long time to then sort of get back to what we've seen in the last few weeks. This app gave, again, 7.2 to Aidan O'Brien, and they gave a flat 7 to George Lapsley. So not too different with George. Obviously, a bit of a difference in terms of Aidan O'Brien. And I get we have different opinions. So sometimes I'll give someone a 7 and you'll give them an 8 and vice versa. But that's generally when we've both watched the game. So that's opinion driven rather than just numbers being put into a computer, essentially.
Yeah.
In terms of the front two, Tom Nichols and Oliver Hawkins.
I mean, actually, a very quiet game for Nichols. It's very easy. You could even give him like what he started with, a 6 if you're not careful. But both of them in general 6.5. I think if you look at the from the goalkeeper all the way down to the striker, you have it goes downwards like that. And I thought the defense was solid, but nothing really to show up front. So 6.5 for both two. I think Hawkins, it was being manhandled quite a lot of the game, in fairness, and he won a couple of free kicks here and there, but he couldn't. It was half a yard slow in a lot of places, and it just wasn't at the races at all. And Nichols, he was not non-existent, but for a player that has been, in and around and always part of the attacks, always part of the goal somewhere, just was very quiet yesterday or Saturday. Was very, very quiet.
Two times I can remember his name being even tweeted was for the two chances. The Aidan O'Brien one first half when he's involved after the flick on from Ollie. And then he's involved in that really good bit of play where Macca's cross flashes across the box and evades Hawkins in the second half. But you're pretty much spot on and along the same lines as the app, to be fair. They gave them both 6.7. Is there a case that maybe Ollie Hawkins just needs a little rest and taken out of the starting 11 for one of these games? He looks like he's been absolutely manhandled, like you say, for 3 games on the spin now.
Yeah. Do you know what, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they rest him for the game on Tuesday to give him a little bit of a break. But I think it would be a good decision, and it'll also be a good show of character from the squad, because we haven't got our target man up top to be able to use. So we may have to play in a slightly different style, which would actually improve the squad's chemistry a bit better and a bit more. I don't know. I think it would be an interesting approach to take him out the squad and see how we adapt to that. But I think he's due a rest and definitely deserve one. Majority of the game was just hands all over him, trying to keep him on the floor.
Yeah, I think that's what I said after Bradford. It was 2 of them, and there was one that I think essentially just was just trying to undress him for the entire of the 90 minutes, trying to take his shirt off his back, and he got no protection. Alex McDonald was the only other one, and I think he got 25 minutes or so. So what did you rate Macca? I mean, he's a stud's length away from an assist again, isn't he? If Hawkins is just a bit more alert for that ball across the box.
I'm just always impressed when he comes on. He's involved in something somewhere and almost creates something. I don't know. It's just when he came on, the game lifted slightly. So, I can't give him a 7, but I can definitely give him a very high 6.5. He did have a good impact on the game when he came on, and would have been the source for a Gillingham goal at some point. I'm sure of it.
6.6 the app. So backs that up, to be fair. So there was a couple that were pretty similar. I just thought the goalkeeper one and a couple of others were fairly separate in terms of the distance between the ratings that you've given, and we hopefully tried to explain why and or at least given our opinion why we think that's happening. Yeah,
that's what happens when you try and quantify football. Sometimes it misses out key elements of other parts of people's game, and therefore
end of the day you can't beat
skewed.
Watching the game for 90 minutes, in my opinion, and then you can forget about XG and pre-assists and all that type of thing. I think the game does get over-analysed a little bit, and we're probably all guilty of it at times.
For sure.
Couple of bits before we finish up. We've already mentioned the part about the results against the teams in and around us. The next step is obviously then trying to pick up wins against those in the top half and the top portion of the table. And we're going to have to do that Tuesday if we want to win the game, because we're going to Stockport for a rearranged fixture. This again could be, on paper, the toughest game since the new group of players. We had Mansfield and we come up slightly short. Bradford come up slightly short. Swindon was a very good point despite leading against the side that at the time were being talked about in terms of playoffs. Stockport are being talked about in terms of potentially gate crashing the top 3, what with Stevenage's big wobble at the moment, huge. And the momentum that they've generally got. Just quickly, if you're picking a team now, so let's say Alex McDonald's 100% and Dom Jeffries is over, whatever he's got a problem. Would you make changes from Saturday's game? We've just
Oh,
alluded to Ollie Hawkins. For me, I think no. Let's ask another question then, and
okay.
then we can go on to that. I've written down: did we miss drive and energy of Dom Jeffries at any point yesterday that could have potentially seen us over the line if he'd been able to play?
Yeah, I think so. I think we definitely did miss him. I think there was definitely a void somewhere in the middle of the park where you were missing the accelerator of the car, essentially, that would
Mhm.
push you forward to try and create something, and that's what Jeffries offers. And yeah, it was definitely something we were missing yesterday because Nichols looked a little bit lost. Hawkins needed a little bit extra support from someone like Jeffries there, and I think we were trying to force Jeffries' play yesterday with the players that we had. I don't think it worked particularly well. So him being back in the squad on Tuesday, if we can get him, would be of huge benefit. Huge benefit.
Because it's almost a domino effect, isn't it? Not only are you
Mm.
missing his ability and his drive and his energy, and we've mentioned it, against Wimbledon last week, still lung busting runs in the 93rd minute to try and chase down the right back and that type of thing. But if he's there, he generally is the one that pulls wide to the left.
Yeah.
So then you can get Aidan O'Brien into the centre, into areas where I think he's more effective. So it sort of negates two things with him not playing because he's not there, which is number one, and Aidan O'Brien's having to play in a position which I don't personally think he's as comfortable doing
No.
as
And
much as Neil Harris says he can play there.
yeah, that was my thing. I think O'Brien looked a little bit lost yesterday in that sense. And if I was to make a change, it would be probably Jeffries for O'Brien and still keep the top two of Hawkins and Nichols there. But if we're going to rest Hawkins,
So that would be mine. I'd go
yeah,
Jeffries if he's fit and get O'Brien up top with Nichols and take Hawkins out
yes,
of the firing line. That would be mine. And then I'd also, but then you've got to try and get Macca in as well.
yeah, right. I don't. How's Sean Williams feeling? Macca can't really play a defensive role, can he? That's more of a
No, I think Sean Williams has to play
he
because
has to
number
play,
one, I
doesn't he?
think he's the glue that keeps everything stuck together. And
He
number
is.
two, I don't think Stuart O'Keefe's good enough, with the
No,
utmost
exactly.
respect, to play that role anymore. He just looked very lost for large periods on Tuesday against Bradford.
Yeah. But
Unless you
that's
change the system completely and just go one up top, that would be the only other way you could do it and play two sitting and then just one
yeah.
centre forward. But it's food for thought, and it's good food for thought, isn't it? Unlike at the start of the season where we was like, oh, we've got to play him because he's slightly less rubbish than him.
Yeah, it's a nice problem for us to discuss, isn't it? Instead,
And it
as
also shows again, Bradford and yesterday, that we are still a few signings away from being a top 10, 8, 7, 6 side, I think.
yeah,
But obviously, we've got the summer to come, and I'm 99.9% sure we'll be in League Two next season. I'm very excited about the prospect of
yeah.
seeing what we do in the transfer window.
I know you probably do a preview at some point, but we got Tranmere week to next week on Saturday, haven't we? At
Mm.
home, right? So we've got Stockport Tuesday, Tranmere at home. I tell you what, I tell you, do you know what? 2 points out of those games isn't the end of the world as a bare minimum. If we can get a point at Stockport and a point against Tranmere, I tell you what, that actually won't be a bad turnover considering who Stockport are. But if we can get a win out of any of those games, I think that's a good showing considering the amount of games we've had over the last week or so. You know, it's
Yeah,
going
I'll
to be
take
quite
that.
tiring on the score.
Or if you lose at Stockport and beat Tranmere again, because that
Yeah,
gives you 3 points. But I think Tranmere, I fancy us. I think I don't think they're all that. If you look, they're on 48 points, Rhys. We've got 34. But if you say the two teams in hand, if we win them, we're on 40 points. Which suddenly
okay.
puts us 16th. There's not a great deal in terms of league position. Then
I didn't
they're
realise how much
struggling.
touch
They're
and
really,
distance we
really
were.
struggling. But
Okay.
let's get through Tuesday first.
Yeah, fair enough.
um, I think that's everything, Gills fans. We've managed to get 45, 50 minutes out of that, which
Jesus
is
Christ.
staggering in itself. So thank you, Rhys, as always. It's been a real
Yeah,
pleasure.
thank you for letting me come on again.
No problem at all. Do not forget, Gills fans and anyone else who's watching, that these videos are now in association with Art of Football. So if you're after hoodies, sweatshirts, t-shirts, prints, bucket hats, and all that malarkey, go and have a look on their website. The link to that site is in the description at the bottom of the video. Rhys is on Twitter, Rhys is on Instagram, Rhys is on YouTube. I tell you every week, if you're not subscribed, then you are doing it wrong. As Rhys has already advertised for me, I should be back later in the week with a Tranmere fan previewing that game. And then we'll be back inside the Priestfield Stadium next Saturday for a match day live. But until then, enjoy your week and up the Gills.
Up the Gills.